Good morning, Sarah.
Good morning, Gosia.
I was so excited to start the day like this with you, talking about your best-selling book, Stop
Yay!
the Camera Way to Future-Proof Your Career and Well-Being. Sarah, it's such a pleasure to have you here with me today because we have known each other for quite a few years,
Ah,
and I have such respect for you and for what you're bringing to the world. So, for all of you that don't know Sarah, Sarah is an executive coach, but she's an executive coach with a difference because she doesn't help her clients to just be successful and push more and achieve more, but she redefined the word success. So the success is achieved in a calm, peaceful, and more mindful way. So at the end of the day, when you are enjoying the success, you have not gone through a burnout or breakdown. Okay, so Sarah, please tell us, darling, why did you write this book? What is this book about, and why did you write it?
well, I wrote this book because I burnt out in my mid-30s, and it has had the most significant and long-standing implications for my life. My life is not as I imagined it to be, partly because of the breakdown, because I wasn't able to conceive children as I wanted. My marriage broke down. I wasn't able to hold down a job that I had loved. So it had massive consequences. And back then I didn't know about stress. I didn't know what stress does to you. And if I had known, I would have had made different choices. So I've written this book for my younger self, kind of, but for people in their very successful parts of their career where they're earning lots of money, they are really going up the ladder, and they don't actually have a sustainable way of working, and something is going to break. So I've written that book for them so that they know more and are able to make different choices, possibly.
Wow. Okay, darling, so I would actually love you to tell me a little bit about what kind of job did you hold when you went through your breakdown? What was
Mm. So I was an executive director at Goldman Sachs. I loved my job. I was really, really good at it. And some of the reasons I was really good at it are part of the problem. I'm a perfectionist, I'm a people pleaser, I'm at work really hard, I have a very hard work ethic. And so I worked at Goldman Sachs, and I got promoted and I got promoted and I got promoted, and I earned more money and I had a nice car, and I started on the housing ladder and all that sort of thing. So I loved my job. I was really good at it. And I ended up being co-head of financial regulation. And that was everything outside of the US. So I was responsible for Asia and Europe in what traders could do. And then I had to report to America. So that's a 24/7 job, actually. That's not really possible to sustain if you want to get a good night's sleep. How can you possibly be talking to Asia as well as Europe, as well as America, and have enough hours in the day? Yeah, I was put into that particular job because I sort out messes. I'm really good at managing people and getting things in order, and it was in a terrible mess. And that's what I was doing when I finally broke down. My body would not take anymore. I had ignored the signs. And one day I asked for some help from a boss who turned his back on me and walked away, saying he didn't have time. And I just ended up collapsing and ending up in the doctor and then in hospital that very night. So yeah, it was, yeah, but it took years to get to that place. And I chose to ignore the signs.
Can you tell me what the signs were?
Well, I think the thing about chronic stress, and that is what burnout's all about, it's chronic work-related stress, is it creeps up on you. You know, you've got a deadline and you work hard and you achieve it, and you just think, I'm just going to push through. It's okay, I'll rest afterwards. And then there's another one, and then there's another one, and then there's another one. Over the years, this is what allows you to get promoted, because you get seen to do all these wonderful things. But the signs for me was I was starting not to sleep well. I wasn't eating properly. I survived on coffee during the day. I got to sleep on a bucket of wine. I might have had some cheese and biscuits to keep me going at night time, but very little sustainable, nutritious food. I didn't even think I drank water back in those days. It was just caffeine that kept me going, and alcohol to calm me down. And of course, I didn't sleep well. I would wake up in the middle of the night worried about my job demands or something that was going wrong, or might have a call in the middle of the night from Asia or something. So I didn't sleep well. My breathing started becoming erratic. So I started breathing like this, and as if I was gulping in air. I couldn't think straight. The words on a page used to swim around in front of me. I just couldn't take information in. Even people speaking, I could hear them, but I couldn't process properly. But all of these things just happened really slowly. So I didn't really notice until I reflect back on it, just what was going on. I was very moody. I was quite shouty in the office. I had a nickname as the Dragon.
Ah, so you did shout at people.
Yeah, I did shout at people. I wasn't very nice. The auditors nicknamed me the Dragon. And it wasn't that I'm a horrid person. I just didn't have the capacity. I just needed to shut things down and just be able to cope with what I had to cope with. So anything extra just got very short shrift. And I was very tearful, mostly at home. So going out for dinner and crying over the dinner table in a restaurant was my husband's regular thing. Poor fellow. I worked most weekends. Yeah.
Wow.
So it was just a crazy, crazy time. And I thought it's what I had to do to be successful.
You thought that that's what you had to do to be successful. So poor nutrition, alcohol to relax, and caffeine to keep you going. How many coffees did you drink every day?
Up to 20. Can you believe that? I mean, I didn't have time to go to the loo, but I don't know why I didn't, because I was drinking an awful lot of coffee. But wow, yeah. I don't drink coffee anymore.
I'm not surprised. So that was a really slow but very focused way to keep on breaking yourself down. And it actually happened twice, not once.
Yeah, so the first time I ended up in the Priory Hospital for a long period of time. But I reflect on this. Who was determined that I went back? I wonder. I think it was more my husband than I was. But however, I ended up going back, and I didn't go back to the same job I had before. I went back to a different job with a woman who ended up being fired for bullying. And I was feeling very vulnerable. I needed to recover. I still am vulnerable, actually, on occasions. But this woman didn't take kindly to me and ended up bullying me. And that was kind of another last straw for me. And I ended up, on one occasion, crawling under the table in the office and wanting to go to sleep. I mean, that is so unlike a Goldman Sachs office, but I did it. I mean, I was just so out of sorts. I just needed to hide. So I ended up in hospital again. And that time it took a very long time to recover.
So basically, when people beginning their career, they are very excited. They're dying to be rich, as we were discussing before. They're dying to be rich, and they are all ready to go. They're all excited, and they do what everybody does: drink caffeine, drink alcohol, work through the night, push, sometimes take drugs, to keep them going. They're dying to be rich, to be successful. So, and then it takes a very long time to recover from the breakdown or burnout. So people don't realize how long it takes then to go back to so-called normal. Yes. So can you tell us a little bit about what was happening in your mind? Because we know what was happening outside, right? You were not eating properly, not drinking properly, pushing yourself. But what was happening in your mind to bring you to this point?
Well, I think it taps into your limiting beliefs and has a field day, doesn't it? So I had a limiting belief that I was stupid,
Oh, wow.
that I wasn't good enough, that I'm unlovable, that in order to keep up, I had to work harder than anyone else just to show them that I wasn't stupid. What else was going on in my head? I just felt I didn't understand. There was so much information. So regulation is very technical. It is full of large documents you need to read. It is so not me. I'm a people person. I've
Yeah.
never been good with words. I hate reading. So as to why I said yes to that job, I have no idea. However, so I needed to assimilate lots of information, and it just wouldn't go in. My brain just said no, it just wouldn't take in information. I couldn't memory recall very much at all, so my memory was failing me as well. So, but I know now that a lot of that was to do with my thinking. So I had faulty thinking about what everyone else was doing was so much better than me, and they were so much more successful than me, and I must be stupid, and I obviously can't do this, and I need to work harder and try harder. And it's just a nonsense. It's not true. I know that now.
So I wonder if we were to take 10 people who have gone through burnout, and interview them on how they got there, how many of them would have a similar belief? Not good enough, I need to work harder, other people are doing better than me. Would you say that they probably will have that in common, or not necessarily?
I think very much so. It would probably have that in common. Yeah, and I think these high-powered environments thrive on people who are desperately trying to prove that they're okay.
Wow.
And it's fantastic, isn't it? Because everybody works really hard and does amazing things, and we move mountains, but at what price? That's the thing. And you were talking earlier on about young people starting off their careers. I read only last week, City Mental Health Alliance brought out a report with Bupa, and it's a shocking read. It was looking at young professionals, and they define young professionals as in the first 4 years of their career. 60% of them had already burnt out
Gave
in the
me
first 4 years of their years. And the thing is, people who are born today are going to live to 102. People in their 20s are going to live till 90, 100, and 110. They're not going to be able to afford their retirement unless they work a really long time. And they cannot afford to burn out in this early phase of their careers, because it's the most lucrative time. It's the best time to get up that ladder. You don't have the same level of responsibility. It's so criminal that we are putting us all through this. The way we work doesn't work.
the way we doesn't work.
It doesn't work.
Thank you for taking a deep breath in and breathing out, because I just had a expansion webinar a few days ago, and there was few women in that webinar who just gone through a burnout, and they said that they were doing jobs for 3 people, then themselves, and then all of that was basic. It was surrounded with the feeling, I need to prove myself, I need to make more money, I'm not good enough, and I need to work hard. So basically the whole society is based on beliefs that are very shaky and are detrimental to our health. Yes?
And the environments we put us in are not fit for purpose.
Why not?
So the systems don't work to today's world. The systems are not able to move as fast as the world changes. For example, technology is so quick. Our need to communicate right now is so fast, but the processes of, let's say, working out how much financial regulatory capital you need is an old system, and it would take too long. We wouldn't be able to do it in time. And so humans try and fill the gap, but we are human beings, as we know, not it's human doings that we're expected to be. So not only is what you said, but we're putting these people into environments that don't work with unrealistic expectations. How could I possibly do 3 time zones? That is not a realistic expectation. Just like you were talking about, we're doing 3 jobs. That's not a realistic expectation.
No.
And yet we say yes, because we don't say no. We collude.
So darling, can you tell me, what would you say now, today, to your younger self, who is just starting and she's dying to be rich and be acknowledged and successful? What would you say to her?
Well, first of all, I'd share some information, and that information would be that stress is not a bad thing. Okay, stress is fantastic. It gives us supernatural powers. It makes us stronger and focused on all those things. But that's acute stress, and it allows our stress hormones to come down because the bear that was chasing us has run off or found somebody else to eat, and that we can hide in our cave and let these stress hormones come down. I didn't know that. I didn't realize that actually bringing down the stress hormones is the key. I didn't know that. And I just kept going with these stress after stress after stress. And that's what I see people doing. So if you understand that when you're in that stress response, that your immune system shuts down, your reproductive system shuts down, your creative and your cognitive brain shuts down, and your digestive system shuts down. So if you stay in that place, you're stupid, sick, and slow. I mean, that's the bottom line.
You are
sick
and slow. Wow, I love it.
And you're infertile, probably, or certainly not at your best to become pregnant if that's what you want to do. You have digestive problems, you might have backache or headaches. All of these things are because we're in this chronic stress state. Now, I didn't know that. If I had known that, I would have made different choices, or at least I would have done some basic things to bring down the stress hormones. And that's what my book is full of. That's strategies to bring down the stress hormones. Simple things like breathing. If you get yourself in a state in the office, take a moment to breathe, just like we did. Take a breath, walk around the block, take a fab break, as I say, a fluid adjustment break, unlike I did when I was just kept going. So this is the sort of thing that I would say to myself, okay, understand what's really going on, and then do what you can to bring down those stress hormones. Even for a second, it makes a difference. That's why sleeping matters. Meditation is a wonderful balm for the soul. But having good relationships so they don't think, that's what's going on. The subconscious thinks it's threatened. So whether it's a deadline or a difficult conversation, these are all things that they think are a threat. And therefore we need to reduce the number of threats we have in our lives. So every single which way, whether it's managing your time differently, or whether it is looking after your physiology, which is the basic things to be doing, but your relationships really matter. They need to work. Agreements avoid disagreements, and it's the disagreements that cause the stress. So there's lots and lots of things that you can do to bring down these stress hormones, and that is what I wish I'd known.
And what would you say to your younger self about this core belief that she's not good enough, she needs to prove herself, and she needs to push and work harder? What would you say to her about that?
What would I say? Well, first of all, again, it's an information thing, but our thoughts are so powerful. They can make us ill, but they can make us well. They are the key. Our thoughts are the key. I didn't know that. I didn't realize that my thoughts could be any different from anyone else's thoughts. I thought were, and at the same time, I thought I was the only one who was stupid. So it's a bit of a mess in there. But if I'd ask for help. Go to a therapist, go to a coach, talk out loud what's going on, and get someone else to help you make some sense of it and realize just these are unhelpful thoughts and you can do something about it. I didn't know that. I thought I was stuck with myself, and I didn't like myself. And now I know differently. It's work in progress, but I know differently.
Yeah, it's always work in progress, and we always keep on learning how to take better care of ourselves throughout our whole life, which takes me to my question. So you redefine success. What success looked like then, it doesn't look like now. So what would you say now is that your definition of being successful?
So my definition of being successful is, it's going to sound a bit crazy, I think, because to me, successful is a combination of happiness and productivity. And it's a really interesting combination for me because I didn't give myself permission to be happy historically. So it's a new thing. But to me, that is the Holy Grail, being happy. And the productivity means I need to be my best self to be productive. Not the old slog way, but a way where actually I can do it joyfully and gratefully and blissfully and be my best self and be my best at being a great coach. So it's a combination of happiness and productivity. So it sounds a bit of an odd combination to me.
It's that's phenomenal. So if you are not happy, essentially, you're not really successful.
Absolutely.
Bottom line.
And yeah, and as you said, we're all work in progress, and sometimes I fall off that wagon
Yeah.
and get consumed by something. And my recent book launch would be a good example where I found myself overtired and really having to push through because it's a finite thing,
Yes.
and kept telling myself, oh no, I'll rest and recover tomorrow, and then something else comes along and you don't get time. So I have fallen off the wagon recently, and I'm really working hard to get back on track.
Beautiful. It's never a finished job. Being
No.
balanced, happy, and I have a few last questions before we finish. What would you say we need to do on daily basis to be happier? What are the small little things?
So for me, I suspect it could be different for different people, but for me, it is taking a moment to be grateful. And what I love about that, for me, is I have my front door is just there. So the first thing I see as I come through is this beautiful fossil, and it brings me joy. So I open my front door, and that's the first thing I can see. And so moments like that is what it does for me. So I walk along to the supermarket and I see an opening rose, or I get the sniff of some jasmine or something as I walk by. Just that moment to say, oh my God, oh my God. That's it for me.
It's interesting because when people are going through stress, chronic stress, they do not notice roses. They do not notice.
And they can't, because our stress hormones say, okay, focus on what you need to do. So we don't have any other, our brains don't allow any other data in because it's trying to flee something. It's trying to run, fight, flight, and freeze. So no wonder we can't smell the roses. But that's where, just grounding yourself for a minute, whether it's, I meditate every day these days. I also have a cold shower, which I find is hugely invigorating, to wake me up to the world. And it's that type of thing, being aware of everything. I think that's the thing, expanding my senses in every way.
This is beautiful. Can I ask you a very silly question? What is your favorite part of your book?
Oh, that's a very difficult question for me to answer, because I don't know about you, but I set myself 6 months to write this book, and it took me 2 years. So there are things in this book that I wrote over 2 years ago, and although I proofread it recently, it's kind of not stuck in.
Mm-hmm.
So in terms of the favorite book, I think the favorite concept
Yes,
is that I have toolkits in there, and
yes.
there are 2 toolkits. There's one for survivors, people who are just barely on the edge and they just need some immediate help. So I have a toolkit for that. And then I have a toolkit for thrivers who are in better shape, but they want to go the extra mile. So that's the concept I like. But I think the other thing that I like is the stories that I have gathered from other people, real life stories about their burnout journey and how they've managed to get back on track. So yeah,
I'm looking forward to reading this too.
I will gift one to you.
Thank you so much. Sarah, please tell us how people can buy your book and how they can contact you in case they want to work with you in the future.
Mm. Well, both are very easy. So the easiest thing to do is to go on Amazon and write stop, and then start writing Sarah, and my book comes up. So that's the easiest thing to do to get hold of the book. And the other easy thing to do to get hold of me is to just email sarah@sarahsparks.co.uk. It's the easiest way to get hold of me. If you really want to do some due diligence and some homework, you'll find me on LinkedIn, so you can see a bit about my past and see what clients have got to say. But the easiest way to get in contact is via email.
And as we're coming closer to Christmas, right, I think that would be a wonderful thing to do if people know someone who is heading for burnout. When you see all the symptoms that they are grumpy, exhausted, tearful, they cannot enjoy. But you know, I was in moments in my life like this. So my then boyfriend was saying to me, look, this is amazing, look at this bird. And I would go, for bloody hell, don't talk to me about the birds. I have something really important to discuss now, and my attention was like that, right? So if you see that there is any of your friends or family members are going through this space of narrowing their attention, grumpiness, exhaustion, sadness, right? Then buy them this book for Christmas and give it to them and say, darling, stop. Just stop. Yes. And I think that would be the best Christmas present, or any present in the future that they can receive. Would you agree with me?
Well, I think it would be a wonderful gift. If only I had received it, I have to say. But the other thing is, you've got to receive it and read it and do what it says on the tin, because nothing will work unless you do, and you have to do the work, I'm afraid. So it's a proactive book.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for our conversation, and enjoy the success, the true success of seeing the book touching so many people around the world and helping them to stop, redefine their success, and start truly taking care of themselves and be successful in a new, respectful, honorable way. Good, that it's good for them, for their family, for the co-workers, and for the whole planet.
Thank you, Gosia.